Yes, sir.
Okay, it's 10:06. We will call the Sawyer County Administration Committee meeting to order for May 14th. Let's do roll call, please, Cindy.
Clete Schumann,
Here.
Dale Schleter,
Here.
James Slender.
Here.
Ron Kinsley. Helen Dennis. Yeah.
And Mike, who is on via Zoom, please?
We have a phone caller I can't identify, Frank Zufall, Linda, and Martin Hanson.
All right, welcome, everybody. All right, Cindy, certification of compliance with open meetings law, please.
And we are, this has been sent out to everybody.
All right, thank you. Let the record indicate we have a quorum. Meeting agenda has been presented. Okay, moving on into number 5, minutes from previous meeting. I got a motion by Mr. Kinsley to approve as presented. Second by Mr. Schleter. Is there any further discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Okay, now we move on to public comment. Is there anyone here present or on the phone via Zoom?
Yes.
Yes.
Linda is.
Okay. Go ahead, state your name, please.
Linda Zilmer, Edgewater property owner. I have 4 public comment items this morning. The first one has to do with observing last night's Public Works committee meeting. I think Supervisor Olson was starting a conversation to help us look at how the courthouse, and I'm saying the word courthouse because that's what we always refer to it as, is used. But I guess I would like to suggest that people start thinking of this as a county government center and traffic flows and not incurring additional cost in remodeling to make things, I guess I would call it dysfunctional. So if you walk into the front of the courthouse right now from Main Street, you have most of the public use areas, whether it's the clerk or the deeds or zoning, everything when you first walk in. A few meetings ago, there was a recommendation to possibly put up signage, and I would encourage county supervisors to revisit that. And maybe as supervisors, if you're opposed to that, go visit some other courthouses and try to find your way. I think it's a public service. And when you evaluate additional spaces, please think about the real use of that county building. The second item I wanted to bring up was a result of ongoing comments, and I'm not saying that this reflects all county supervisors, but it seems to come up quite often in the finance committee meeting where as part of the referendum discussion in addressing the public, that maybe the public needs to understand what services might be cut if a referendum doesn't pass. And I guess maybe I will follow up with correspondence listing all the things that the county is supposed to be doing already and it doesn't do or has not been doing very well. 3 public hearings. I have had a request in about public participation in public hearings like tomorrow's zoning hearing. And so this format, there has been a learning curve on Zoom from, at least from my participation standpoint. And I see tomorrow that the zoning committee or department has chosen to use something called bluejeans.com. So I guess that would be another learning curve, but I intend to come and attend in person. And I don't see guidelines. I intend to wear a mask. I intend to social distance, but maybe that would be helpful. And also, again, standardizing on how you're going to help the public participate remotely. And the 4th item has to do with the Finance Committee's recent action on Act 185. I know I have sent an email out about Act 185, and I think I included the county board chair and the county administrator. And I kind of resented some of the comments that were made in finance about, well, does the public even know about this? And then to turn it down. Now, there are legitimate reasons and concerns with cash flow as to why a county might not choose to do this. But even though the motion at the committee level was to not adopt that, I hope that goes to full county board. Thank you.
Appreciate it. Is there anybody else, Mike, with a hand up?
Not at the moment.
Okay. Over here, so we'll move on then to number 7. Veterans Service Department report. Is he on, Mike, or we just got something to review?
I don't know if he's a caller here. I can see.
Okay, but we have, he sent us a written report. Is everybody able to pull it up? Okay, some questions. I know we've got Memorial Day coming up. Kind of wish he was here to explain the events coming forward. Anybody have any questions, concerns on this report? If not, then we'll move on to number 8. Mike, Information Technology Department report.
Thank you. Good morning. Past month we've been dealing primarily with the remote, the changes due to remote workers. I think for the most part, it's been going well. Obviously, there are some issues. We try to address them very quickly as soon as we can with the staff. We're continuing. We get some new and replacement equipment to make things run a little smoothly, depending on the department. Human services primarily, and then of course we're dealing with meetings such as this, getting the logistics worked out. And as I mentioned, it's a bit of a learning curve, but I think we're making some progress there. Other than that, we're continuing to work on some new survey equipment for the sheriff department, and trying to make things, some of the older applications, migrating them onto the new equipment, so we'll have a longer life. So that'll be ongoing into next month. Other than that, we've been working with the highway department, repairing some cameras for the remote shops in Radisson and Winter that got damaged, and we'll be going down there again probably next week to finish that project up. And let's see, the other new project we worked on with the ambulance department was their drug dispensers. Those are online now, so I'm sure Nate would have some additional information on those, but that's about it, unless there are any questions.
Mr. Schleimer.
Slater was first.
Well, you said, that's okay, a couple of things. The sheriff's department survey equipment.
Oh, I'm sorry, server, new
Server.
computer
I'm sorry.
equipment to run their
I
application.
misunderstood you. And what damage was done to those cameras? And how was,
It was probably water and snow damage. The snow or ice fell on top of
well, it
them.
wasn't vandalism or anything.
No, it doesn't appear to be any vandalism.
Thank you.
Mr. Schleimer.
Mike, with all this COVID stuff going on, I really want to thank you for the effort and the patience that you put in as you are not only dealing with people who probably never used technology before, but as we kind of stepped into hyper technology in terms of communicating. And so I just want you to know that I appreciate that level.
Thank you.
Second thing is, does the county have a specific programming that it's using? Is it BlueJeans or is it Zoom, or is there one that is preferred over the other?
Well, a good question. We started with BlueJeans because we already had that, and it allowed us to put as many users as we wanted on there. We found some deficiencies with it. It didn't have the same securities as Zoom, or the same features, I mean. So we're starting to move over from BlueJeans to Zoom. I mean, we're still using both, actually. In fact, there's a department head meeting. We're going to be using BlueJeans, but I think long-term, for as long as we're going to be doing these meetings, Zoom seems to work better.
So I'm wondering after the meeting if you can help me put BlueJeans on my iPad Jose.
Mr. Chair.
Great, yes, sir. Mr. Hall.
Yeah, just one more comment on the zoning public hearing that's taking place tomorrow is through Blue Jeans, even though we've had all of our other meetings on Zoom, just because they had to publish some information about the meeting when we were still on Blue Jeans. So eventually they'll be moving to Zoom as well.
Great question, Mr. Schlunder. Mike, last night at the Public Works meeting, we had a little difficulty with Mr. Kane, his presentation. And I know he's gonna do a major presentation at county board next week. Have you worked that out, or do you think we can?
I think I need to talk to him. It appears he was participating as a phone caller. And so of course you can't make any presentations that way. And then we had another issue with the size of his presentation. So there was just a couple of minor glitches that I'm sure we'll be able to iron out here in short order.
Yes, yeah, he did do it successfully at the board meeting prior, so he was logged in as Sam on his computer. That may have thrown you off, but we're gonna try it before the meeting just to make sure that he's hitting the right buttons.
Sound good, Mike?
Very good.
Is there anywhere on the meeting agenda you would like to be? That'd be easier for you to have it like first, or doesn't that matter?
For myself,
Yeah.
for this meeting,
Because you're gonna be there obviously for,
for the county board.
Yeah.
No, you don't have to make any accommodations for me. I'll try to make the accommodations for you.
all right, great. Any other questions, concerns for IT? If not, appreciate all you do, Mike, and I agree with Mr. Schlenner, you're doing a wonderful job.
Thank
with
you.
this Pandemic.
Mr. Chair,
Yes, sir.
I believe Gary Elliott is logged on. He was having trouble. If you had
Oh,
any comments for him,
Great.
he wanted to chime in.
I do.
Oh,
Mr. Elliott, are you there?
1 second. Gary, you can unmute yourself and you should be able to talk.
Gary, are you there?
I find it's better to talk when you're muted.
Let's see, I think he just,
Depending on what you're saying. It's my plan.
Mr. Elliott, are you there?
This is Linda Zilmer. I'm receiving a message to unmute. Maybe you are contacting the wrong person and they're not unable to unmute.
Can you hear me?
Oh, there you are.
There you go.
Okay, good morning, Gary.
Go ahead, go ahead, Gary.
Mr. Elliott, can you hear us? He's unmuted, Mike.
Yes. He was just on briefly and then, let's see here.
Okay, well, we can, yeah. All right, we'll move on and if you get back on, we'll go back. Rose, Human Resources Report, please.
Yes, I have my report there. Have to turn over. We have several open positions. Those are listed down at the bottom. Starting up the Time Clock Plus project again. Let me get back at that.
I don't have that report. Is it an updated thing?
On the computer. I didn't bring one.
Sorry.
And still working with, people that are working remotely, just with various little items, questions, concerns. Getting some questions now of, do we want them to come back into the building and work now that the governor was the order, or where is that all at? So that's something we have to talk through, which I know everyone wants to deal with, work on that anyway. So,
You want to comment now, Tom?
Let
With the
me
Supreme Court decision, how does that affect people?
cover that in my report.
Okay, all right. All right. So all these positions that are open currently, they're budgeted and you,
there's, towards the bottom, you'll see 3 positions in health and human Services that we are not planning or we're not recruiting for at this time. One is a clerical position that's been open for a while,
Let me scroll down a little bit.
and then the billing clerk,
Is that cold?
that position will be open June 2nd. And then an AODU counselor, we're not planning on recruiting for that at this time.
Okay. Yes, sir. Mr.
So
Schreiber.
this is my brand, first time for this one. How does someone apply for a position with the county?
So we have paper applications, or most of it is done online on our Sawyer County website. So when we advertise, we put the Sawyer County website address on there. They go to the website and use an electronic application and then submit.
So the county or the county administration has the ability to hire, we don't have to get like permission from the state, or there's no state test or any kind of civic test or anything? There's just that,
There's no civic.
so as long as it's a county position, as long as they follow the requirements that's in the application and they submit it to you or submit it to the county, then they can be considered, or at least they'll be lined up for an interview.
Well, I mean, it depends on the applications, yeah.
Right.
We work with the department head.
And then what is the role for admin when you have these positions posted? Is this stuff that we keep to ourselves, or can we,
No.
are we okay to encourage people to apply? Even though we may have this information?
Yes.
Yes, I would say
course.
yes.
I'm brand new, so
No, you're
I
right.
know that there's sometimes like the state of Wisconsin, if you're gonna apply for a position, you have to go through like a civil service exam, you gotta go through all these different steps. And there are people who are looking for jobs. And so if I say the county is hiring, I wanna make sure that I don't send them off some random goose chase, that I give them clear instructions, because sometimes the application process will cause a deterrent for people to wanting to apply, because they don't wanna embarrass themselves and think that they're not good enough, or they're not passing muster. So if I can understand that, then it helps me explain it to them, to encourage them to apply. So I'm sorry if the question seems redundant, it's just my first time.
Did you get the answer?
Yep.
Mr. Schluter.
One addition to that is, if it's a lot of the positions in Health and Human Services require that you have a state license for that position.
Rose, I guess I have concerns with Health and Human Services. In our meeting with Mr. Schluter, we heard from AODA and mental health, and they went on and on about how they're understaffed and there's all this workload. And, so is there a reason that we're no longer planning to fill this AODA counselor position? Specific reason?
I guess that would be a conversation or a discussion that I have with Paul.
With Paul. And he was at our meeting via Zoom, correct, Mr. Schluter? What are your thoughts on not planning on this?
This may be the first of several very hard decisions we have to make in order to balance our budget. More's coming. Got services, that's the only thing we can do. And I don't like any better than any of you.
Mr. Hoff.
Yeah, some of the positions that come up, open in Health and Human Services that aren't being filled are because of lack of clientele, like the CCS. They willingly haven't filled the position until they get enough clientele to substantiate, the billing that would be required to pay for that position. So they do look at those things, and as Mr. Schluter suggested, that's one of the talking points that we have with department directors are, do we fill a position? Can we do things differently? Those types of things. So
Is a mental health AODA counselor, is that a mandated service we should need to provide?
again, a question for Paul.
I don't believe it is. I mean, the county can refer to other mental health counselors and that type of thing.
I think Paul alluded to that in the Health and Human Services meeting Tuesday night. Currently that's being provided by a couple of staff members, but he's worked with Northland Counseling to get them licensed in Hayward. So
Well, Northland does some of our programs, like the CPS, which I don't know what these acronyms stand for, they all start with C though. They do provide that. We do have 2 people that are AODA counselors, so I don't know that there is a caseload for a 3rd one anyway. At the moment.
Don't cover it.
Oh. All right. Is there any other questions, concerns for Ms. Lilyroot and Human Resources? Oh, in finance today, Rose, we discussed parts of our 2021 budget, including a 1.5% increase for all employees. Would you be in favor of that also? The board.
Yeah.
Well, let me think about that one. Is that 3 pennies or 6
You're aware of
pennies?
our budget. You know.
We really need to work at keeping our wages somewhat competitive, even with our surrounding counties. There are some big disparities. So, yes, I would definitely be in favor of that.
Thank you very much. Mr. Hoff, County Administrator report.
You want to try Mr. Elliott again? He thought he might be back on. You want to give that a try?
You bet. Is he unmuted, Mike?
He's unmuted.
Okay, Mr. Elliott? Gary, can you hear us?
Or not?
Okay.
Testing, tell them that free beer here.
Mr. Hoff.
Do we?
Okay. I didn't provide a report, which kind of had to be rewritten last night as the order got rescinded at the state level. We had our daily call with public health and sheriff and the whole response team at 4:30. We have that call standing every day where we discuss issues. And on yesterday's call, we kind of decided that we wouldn't need to talk today and unless the Supreme Court did something. Well, as soon as we hang up the phone, the Supreme Court order came out and that kind of changed the world here. So after Public Works last night, spent a lot of time just trying to figure out what that means for the county. You know, as far as the county staff goes, you know, it's still business as usual. We're still having a single point of entry here at the courthouse. We're still allowing people to work remotely, and that will continue until we figure out exactly the ramifications of the order, or if there's new orders coming about, or just what's going to happen. The ideas behind the Safer at Home are still viable. I mean, this social distancing and the masking when you can't social distance, all those types of things are still good ideas, whether they're in order or not. So the county will still, you know, take appropriate measures to keep our staff safe and work through some of these issues. So working with the sheriff and public health today as well, as far as what this order means for businesses and how we enforce or help businesses get back online, since they can now do that. So that'll be the rest of the day, is kind of looking at what's happening there. So there was a lot of concern before the Supreme Court order came out as far as enforcement. You know, there's a lot of businesses that were really itching to open because of the economic conditions that they're facing, being closed as long as they were. Put a lot of pressure on public health and law enforcement to make sure that they were compliant, or try to be compliant as best as we can make it. So things were, the tension was ratcheting up as far as enforcement of the existing order. So now we've gone in the other direction with no order at all, and what that means to businesses and how they respond and how they open, and you know, the participation of bars and restaurants and the public and how they react to it is going to be interesting. So a new day.
Just off of that, what is your interpretation then of the Supreme Court decision as far as restaurant, bars and all, retail, I know retail recently through Executive Order 36 was, they could open with 5
So let me,
customers. So,
can I help Tom before he answers that question? I hope that you have a call out to Rebecca to help you get a legal opinion, because I'm afraid that with this being a public meeting, I don't want Tom's opinion being construed as a position that the county is taking. And so hopefully Rebecca is working on what would be a legal interpretation, because the county has, we have some responsibilities, but we don't have some areas of enforcement. And so I would just caution that, you know, our opinion being our opinion, and that not being construed as a formal opinion. What I would ask Tom to do is, if we have a public information officer, or if we have some type of way of doing a press release, that we do something saying that the county is currently reviewing the responsibilities for the different agencies, and that, because here's the language that I really think that we ought to be in charge of. If people want to wear masks, they should be respected for wearing masks. And if people don't want to wear masks, they should be respected for wanting to do that. And just making sure that that's an informed decision, because what's happened in the last month is it turned into a partisan issue. So that if you were wearing a mask, you were, you know, following the governor's order. And if you were not wearing a mask, you were protecting your constitutional rights. And it's a health issue that is, we need to separate that. I don't want Tom to get pulled into that. I don't want the county to get pulled into that. We need to make sure that our public health officials are being respected for the work that they're doing, and that we don't let partisan politics. And so if we can get a statement out saying, we're looking at whatever the impact of this order is, businesses can do what businesses are going to do, and we don't force people to have to enforce something that's either unpopular or puts them in a difficult spot. So that's what I would ask.
I appreciate that. Ms. Dennis.
The last thing that I heard from the governor this morning when I left was, it will now turn into the county making that decision for their county. So we'll see what happens.
Thank you. Go ahead, Mr.
Yeah, interesting time. So we've gotten some guidance from Wisconsin Counties Association. Of course, their legal staff has been working on this all night. The full Von Briesen staff, Rebecca, Andy Phillips, and several others are also reviewing the legal ramifications of this. It is quite a complex order that came through, and so it's taking them some time to sift through, obviously, and come back with us, and all counties actually, with exactly what happens now. So yeah, we are in constant contact with WCA and Von Briesen with what happens next. So one of the next questions, of course, is the local order that we have, and are there going to be new orders coming from the state? What authority do we have to do orders on the local level? Those are the questions that we're looking for answers to. As far as Mr. Schumann's question, as far as the order stands now, there is no order, so bars and restaurants can open and probably are opening as we speak. So today will be spent with public health and the sheriff, just and the public information officer, putting out, first figuring out what it is that we need to do next, and then getting that communication out to the public. So it's going to be an interesting day. That answer?
It does. Thank you so much. I appreciate that.
So we've had some other discussions on, the remote work that employees are doing. Again, that's going to continue as much as we can. There are some departments that are looking to get staff in just because of workload and the type of work that they do. So we're working with those departments and public health is involved too, to make sure that the employees, when they do come back in the building, are in a safe environment. And so we're kind of working through those issues as well. These virtual meetings that we've had, it's taken some time to set them up and test how these work or don't work. And so I appreciate board members' patience and the public's patience as we kind of work through some of the issues and getting these meetings rolling. I think this isn't probably going to go away anytime soon. I think COVID-19 is going away. Virtual meetings will probably be continuing. So we will kind of get better at doing those, and I think we're doing better than we started out. So we do have public participation now, which is another plus, so we'll continue down that line. What else? Other than COVID stuff,
Sales tax impact during COVID. I think we heard this morning in finance that actually went up in March. Is that what we had projected?
well, March was kind of the first signs of things kind of going awry on us. So March was actually an increase, actually of the best March that we've had. But I think the next few months will really tell the tale on what's happened, starting in April and into May here. And then how fast will the economy bounce back? Will it bounce back? Will people actually, do the same kind of activity that they had in the past? Or are people going to, there's a lot of people out of work. There's a lot of people that are skittish about getting out in public, rightfully so. So, a lot of the events that we had planned for this summer, Lumberjack Fest, Muskie Fest have been canceled. That'll have an impact on sales tax as well. Heading into the fall, the fair is still planning on having a fair. The events in the fall are still on, but we'll just have to see, what happens there. That'll affect our economic standing as well. So we do know that that sales tax will be probably not hit budget. To what extent is still a mystery. In the prior meeting, we also mentioned, there's a package that the House introduced this week, I believe on Tuesday, that would help counties, not only on the expense side, but on the revenue side. There hasn't been any relief on the county government or local governments to make up for lost revenue, whether it be sales tax revenue or lost property taxes or any other lost revenue. So the plan that the House put together does help local governments make up some of the lost revenue. However, that package has got to make it through the Senate to be approved, and not hearing a lot of confidence that that's going to happen. So we're not planning on getting help on the revenue side, but it would be nice if that did happen.
So is the sale tax in March, is that because we sold out of toilet paper or what?
What else do we want to talk about?
Mr. Schleifer had a question.
No, that's fine.
regarding
It's
lost
fine.
sales tax.
Yes, I ignored him.
We do with all the closing all retail shops, bars, restaurants, that had a major.
Right, yeah, so that certainly affects how we make it through 2020. It affects how we put together the 21 budget. So as we learn more about the relief that comes through or not, and how quickly the economy bounces back, or if we have a reemergence of COVID-19 in the fall, or even now that people are going to be moving around a bit more, it's going to be interesting, I think, as we move forward. So,
Mr. Kinsley, you want to comment at all from finance regarding the discussions today on 2020 and 2021 budget? For the admin people that were not here.
President, we're looking at approximately 900,000 deficit from the 2021 budget. So we're looking at ways that we can try to overcome that. There'll be more at the full county board, yes.
Do you have a projected deficit for the 2020 budget?
Good point. That came up there.
But we do have a plan laid out through 2025. So if it's full 19, 2020, no, we do not.
yeah, again, it kind of depends on how the packages roll through. The Fed allocated some money to the states. The state hasn't allocated that down to the counties yet. So depending on how that rolls out, will help a bit on the expense side. As we learn more about sales tax and some of the other lost revenue, what we're anticipating is that the budget that we originally set out for 2020, there's some things on the revenue side we're not going to meet. we are doing some extra expenditures to battle the COVID-19, but we will get reimbursement for at least some of those expenses. So it's a work in progress.
Finance Committee is also putting together the language for the referendum and a timeline,
Yes.
correct, Tom?
Yep.
And
Yeah, so
present-
there's discussion about, a referendum to exceed the levy limit. As you know, and as we've experienced over the past several years, the difficulty of building a budget based on the constraints of the state has put on as far as our levy goes. And that's the amount of money that we can tax for. So, as costs increase, we're not able to increase the budget to pay for even the services that we continue to provide. So it's increasingly more difficult. And so the Finance Committee is looking at holding a referendum, which would allow the county to exceed the levy limit to pay for some of those services that they deem necessary. That is about the only mechanism that the state allows counties to do to increase the levy that they use for providing those services. A couple other matters. We talk a lot about in Public Works about the airport construction. There's some major construction that's happening with the apron and taxi lanes. We're getting a lot of help on that. Of course, a lot of that is federally funded. There is a county share on that, which we're working through on the budget as well. Looking forward then at the airport, there's a major runway repaving project coming down the pike in probably 3 to 4 years. So looking at planning on those things as well.
Tommy, the airport CARES Act funding, what did that come to, like 30,000 they were gonna receive?
Yeah, there's $30,000 of funds that we've received for the airport, or will receive. We've got to send in some paperwork for that, and that can be used for operations or capital. In discussions with the airport manager and Mike Keith, we're looking at using that $30,000 for operating expenses in 2020. We do have an allocation of, the normal allocation of funds for construction projects. And then the leftover amount that we would need to do that apron taxi lane project, which will occur in the spring of 2021, we would put in the CIP and pay for any extra amount out of that, which would be about 20 to 25,000. So rather than using the 30,000, against the CIP construction projects, we use it for operations and help the 2020 budget. And there may be more money coming through on the airport side. We just don't know yet what that may be and what amount it will be.
And then we learned last night that the 30,000 doesn't make us budget neutral either, correct? Because the county subsidizes the airport to more than 30,000.
Yeah, the airport, there's a tax allocation of about 100,000 that is levied for the purpose of operating the airport. Now, when we did the contract negotiations with the fixed base operator, the FBO, and the airport management, we did negotiate higher rates on the fuel percentage that we get, and also participating in the other revenues that they generate at the FBO, whether it be tie-down fees or car rentals or some of those other things. The county now participates in some of that revenue as well. So that is meant to whittle down the amount of taxes that are needed to run the airport operations.
Yes.
So, Tom, I got a question regarding the construction that the airport received. Does the county have like a county preference for local businesses to be the ones that contracted to do the construction? Or were the construction or the work that was done, was that farmed out to areas outside of the county?
That's all done through the state, so the FAA and the DOA let those projects, so they do all the engineering work or hire the engineering work and hire the construction work. So that's not a county-run bid process. It's run through the state process.
So if the county does construction projects, do we have to let the state administer that because we're an agent of the state? Or, so if we do a county project with a county preference, is that an enforceable type of concept, or
Are you talking airport or any construction?
any construction, any work that the county needs done that is going to be county dollars or, funds that we're going to have to expend from our budget, do we have the option to hire locally, or do we have to, or do we lose that ability, or is that not an enforceable kind of concept?
For the airport, again, that's a federally funded airport, so that's run through the state process. We do have our own county purchasing policy. And in the county purchasing policy, there is no local preference in that policy. It's strictly on the ability to do the work and, pricing. So, and we run into that occasionally on like vehicle purchases and whatnot. It's like, if you can buy this vehicle, do you want to pay more because you can buy it locally? And so far in the policy, there's no local preference. It's like, if you can do the job for this price, that's who gets it. So there's no local preference.
Good question. Is there any other, I know I ask this every committee I'm at, is there any other CARES Act funding that we could be expecting, or like covers the airport with $30,000?
That just gets allocated to airports based on a percentage based on the size of the airport. So it's not anything that we're applying for. It comes through as, here are the airports, here are the size. This airport gets 30,000. So, you look at around the state, then airports our size get 30,000. Airports larger get 100,000. It's a set allocation based on.
And it all comes out of the CARES Act. And
That's a
COVID.
federal connection. That's a federal legislation.
Oh, thank you. Oh, Ms. Dennis?
Going back to what James was talking about, isn't that what we did with the ambulance station? I mean, we contracted out locally.
Yeah, it was a local bidder that got the award, yes.
Yeah.
Okay. Go ahead, sir.
Been talking with the city about the extension of California Avenue. That's the one that runs like just on the other side of the Senior Resource Center and would snake back behind the ambulance garage and come out on Nyman. They put in new sewer back in that area, but they were looking at doing a road. They were going to get some information to us for Public Works, but they have not yet. We're trying to see if it'll fit back there. There's wetlands back there, and we've already had our experience with wetlands. So you might hear more about that in the next month or so.
Mr. Schluter? Yes, sir.
That's mostly a city project, right?
Yeah, it is a city project. So they did work already like behind the Senior Resource Center. If you go back there, that is new. But then past that, they got it graded because they had to put in the sewer line, but they haven't built the road pending,
The road will cut across county line.
yes.
So is it fair to say then that where construction has been done, that there would be less of an environmental impact if construction has already been attempted and completed?
No, because they had an easement back through there for the existing sewer line. So the existing easement that they had allowed them to put in the sewer line, even though it's on our property, because they had that easement. But they're looking towards a wider easement to allow for a road to go back through there. So they're still trying to analyze, if there's room to do that.
So if we built like south, where they just did the construction for the main street, we built up there, we'd have less problems with like environmental groups?
Not sure what your question is.
Saying forget it, so it's okay.
We just don't want to
there
touch
is a-
wetland.
Yeah, there is a creek that runs on the other side of that, and so that's kind of the concern is where that wetland is and goes down into the creek. So What else? We had a lot of conversation about, the second
Yes.
circuit court of the building. Finance spent some time looking at that as well. We had some new scenarios put forth by Venture Architect for some different scenarios, planning on a second courtroom within the footprint of this building. So I think some of you have the handouts for that. That'll be discussed at the county board next week. John Kane of Venture Architect did a presentation to Public Works last night just to kind of do a preliminary walkthrough of some of the new ideas. If in fact we did use the existing footprint and put a courtroom within this building with limited additional building out, what would that look like and what departments would be displaced and how would we do that? So they kind of put down some recommendations on different areas. They're touching just about every other area, whether it be the treasurers, clerks, zoning, circuit courts. There's different scenarios that have run through, but to do anything like that, of course, would be that we would be replacing existing departments and needing to move them elsewhere.
Tom, I was just for Jim and Dale's consideration here on page 9 is where Mr. Kane outlined all the different options. 1, 2, and 3 were the previous 3 options he'd given us a year ago. So then when we asked for option 4, correct me if I'm wrong, Mr. Kingsley, but then he went into 4A, 4B, 5, 6, 7A, B, 8A. So we got our first look at that last night at Public Works. And he's going to give a full presentation at county board next week. So I just want to get you guys used to what we're looking at here. And he'll also, will he have construction costs for us?
Yeah.
This Thursday?
The plan, was to just kind of go through those last night, see what other comments Public Works had, the 5 board members on Public Works. Just to see, if there's anything else, if he's going totally in the wrong direction or not. That they seem to like a few of those plans more than others, but I think we're going to get pricing on everything that's presented in that book, at least preliminary prices, not a solid quote, but kind of a ballpark. If you do this per square foot, this is what the cost would be to give you a better idea of the different scenarios and costs associated with it.
Ms. Dennis?
If we went with, just a comment, if we went with 8B, who would we have to relocate?
I don't have that in front of me. What is that scenario?
He was going to work on that. What
I
employees
don't
would be
see
displaced?
anybody having to be
The clerk's court would have to be
going off from the old to small
Yeah.
court. Who would have to be displaced then?
That one probably wouldn't displace anyone, but that went into the parking lot, and that was one of the concerns. So, yeah, I mean, it's always kind of a trade-off on, you want to take out parking spaces and not disrupt other people? Do you want to save parking lot and disrupt people? So those are kind of the scenarios and different options that you have.
Yes, sir.
Have we done an evaluation of the ductwork and the ventilation stuff that we've done for the existing courthouse? Is there any kind of work that's been done to evaluate that?
Well, we did recently, I thought I had that in here somewhere.
It is, it's in there.
Yeah, we did do ultraviolet, is it ultraviolet or some kind of lighting through the ductwork to prevent the spread of mold and whatnot.
I know there was a lot of concern, Jim, on the sprinkler system. And whatever we do in renovation or remodeling or addition, we wanted to prevent having to sprinkler the entire building. So that is under concern. And then I also asked him what Ms. Dennis talked about. How many employees would be displaced? And do we have room to accommodate them here? Or would we have to look at putting them off-site and paying a lease?
So,
Right, which was not very popular.
you mean putting them off-site or just displacing them?
If we had to, relocate them off-site and pay a lease somewhere, that wasn't working. That did not go over well.
I think that that's something that needs to actually be fleshed out because we're already dealing with space problems right now. And understand that, and if we're gonna have some economic impact on this, there's gonna be some places that are gonna become, you know, available because of just from lack of, you know, economic activity. And then the other thing we also need to consider is how long is this construction going to take, whatever construction that's decided, if there is construction that's decided. Because it's not just the actual office that's impacted, it's gonna be the entire building and the operations of the county. So I mean, if we do something like 8A and 8B, not only do we lose the parking spot, but then we also got noise and we got other collateral information that's going to impact health and human services. If we do 4A and 4B, we've shut down that whole entire, you know, was it the southwestern corner of the courthouse or the government building or whatever we're going to call it. So we have to think about what the outlying effects is, because I hate to be penny wise but dollar foolish in terms of how we approach this. And I know it's going to be expensive and it's going to be some displacement, but we should work towards protecting the work of these important county employees rather than just trying to figure out what dollars that we can save. So, and then if we also need to relocate some of these departments, do we have other places like, is there a place for zoning to be out with land and water, or, you know, something along those lines? If we can start bringing up some of this office space here to see if they can be relocated. Just one of the points.
Ms. Dennis?
You know, I think we need a discussion on who doesn't have an office space. Where are we short? You know, we're not hearing any of that. Who needs a room that doesn't have one?
And then we learned last night there's some empty spaces here that
Yeah,
are unoccupied.
I don't,
Well, very few. But I think everyone who needs a space has a space currently.
Okay.
I mean, that's a true statement. But, you know, and we've also got people working remotely, but that's kind of temporary. Can that happen permanently? We haven't considered permanently yet, but maybe we do if that's an option that, you know, saves us money and you're still functional. You know, and that was one of the reasons we went with Venture, because they are familiar with courthouses and the flow of traffic between DA and circuit courts and the judge and juries, and how all that kind of flows together so that you don't end up with a building that is dysfunctional. I think this building by its nature, the way it was built, is dysfunctional. It doesn't allow us to be totally efficient just because of the building layout. So anything that we do, I think, can be an improvement in how traffic flows and people communicate, because it's not laid out very well right now.
So to follow up on what Ms. Dennis just said, I think there's something that we do need to look at in terms of this COVID-19 impact. And one is the remote locations and the remote working areas. We're going to have a lot of people, probably the majority of people, maybe everybody, I don't know, who think that they're only working when they come to their office. And there's a lot of people who work all the time, and making them come to an office sometimes is more of an impediment than it is, and it might free them up. But then we also have an accountability issue and whatever. So I think it warrants a conversation to see, you know, whether it's a viable idea, because it's cheap to figure it out and it's easy to just go back to the old practices. But just COVID-19 in its current manifestation is going to reoccur. There's always the talk about the second wave and, you know, whatever going forward. And the thing that I think that we should be proud of and that we should acknowledge is that the county, when it was first confronted with this, we developed all these policies, these procedures: safer at home, working remotely. And so if it happens again, it's not going to be a culture shock as much as it is. We have a mechanism to rely on and a practice, and so that we can, you know, if we have an outbreak in Hayward, in the city of Hayward, then we already have county employees that know how to work and have access remotely. That's why one of the questions I asked Mr. Colson is, do we have a base computer network that allows us to zoom in and provide the services that we need to do? So I think we need to start thinking about this more holistically and larger in terms of what the impact is, because we may not have money. We probably don't even have the money to build a second courthouse. So if we don't have the money to build a second courthouse, that shouldn't stop the conversation about what it is for office space for that here. I mean, we have people all over the county, and there's always been this criticism that everything is concentrated in Hayward and that people come from all different spots. But if we could allow for remote locations and then, changing the service deliverables, then we could figure out what that would look like. Anyway, that's just a comment. Doesn't require action or whatever.
So I would like members of the admin committee to email myself and Tom with any considerations you have for Mr. Kane that he can present next Thursday, like your length of construction. What is the time frame on all these options? How many employees will be displaced in each option? And do we have adequate space within this building to put them? And if we have to put some on site or consider that, what options weigh in with that? Okay, you guys? So I get that to Mr. Kane for next week's full county board meeting, where this will have adequate time and full discussion. And then we'll make a decision the following month.
One comment to follow up on that, and this is just my own residual remembering, and Mr. Schmidt was actually present for this too. Did we have concerns from Health and Human Services about the amount of space that they had to make sure that they were compliant with HIPAA when they had conferences with clients? And does that something that we want to maybe start taking into consideration? If we start moving people around in this building, how are we maintaining the area of confidentiality and we're not creating a liability on behalf of the county because we're just trying to crunch people in smaller spaces? Because the wall doesn't stop the conversation.
It's something that they've been dealing with forever, and they continue to work with to get, as you say, to follow the HIPAA rules. And yeah, that's a consideration to keep in mind. There's lots of options. So.
Just bringing it up on that.
No, these are good. Ms.
We've
Dennis?
even talked about buying a building, correct? I mean, that's been a topic. And then all of a sudden it kind of died off. So we have the old Associated Bank down there. Might be something to look at, isn't gonna hurt.
Right.
And we could take these departments that are required within the law and do something. I don't know. I think this is something that we really have to think carefully. Like concept, we don't want to decide something like just the courtroom and then find out we screwed up. I mean, look at the jail. Look at this building. You know, hindsight.
Right. Mr. Slater?
Could we have this conversation with Gary who is back to his work?
Sure.
Gary's learning a lot.
Gary's just all done. You might jump in here with us. Is that okay with everybody? Then let Gary go. Yes, Mr. Elliott. All right. We were all sharing your written report. Very nice.
Good morning. Yep. Sorry about that. I was here, but I was not here. I could not speak. Yeah, things are going okay. Obviously, you can see April was a much slower month than what we had in the past as far as people coming in, phone calls, what have you. We still, our disability pension claims were 37 at the end of the month, and we pulled in $161,786 in claims, in initial payout for claims decided in the veterans' favor. So our vet center counselor had 32 phone sessions in continuing counseling for Sawyer County veterans during this month. So, or April, I should say. So that service has continued. One service that I'm concerned about, and is we provide transportation. We did provide transportation in Minneapolis for our veterans that had appointments down there. We stopped that because of the COVID outbreak. The biggest concern I have is we've got veterans that are, you know, they have cancer, and they're going through treatments, and we could not take them down there. I didn't have a driver that was willing to, at the time, go down with the veteran, and potentially, you know, expose themselves to COVID in the van drive or at the hospital. So I talked to talked to my drivers, I've got one that said, I don't care, that's fine. I will continue to drive it, you know, if I need to, I'll drive. But I need, I guess, a thumbs up, we support you, Gary, and go ahead and go back to transporting veterans down there, or no, you're not going to. That's kind of the thing, because you're damned if you do, you're damned if you don't. And COVID is important, I understand that, but I have a lot of veterans that are dying of other things than COVID. And they need treatment and they need help. So, I guess I need some direction in a sense.
Well, we're kind of, Gary, going off what Mr. Schlenker said, we're going to meet with the public health official. What time, 11:30? And I'll run that by her.
All right, I will tell
Is
you.
she comfortable with your driver? Are they going to mask or?
Well, I would, yeah, I would.
You need all that information.
Yep, I would need that. I will tell you, what I have been doing, my workaround is Washington County's drivers never stop. They go down every week, and what I've been able to do is get my veterans over to Washington County to get picked up there and go down. So that's worked for some, it hasn't worked for all. And then there is community care for veterans that they can do. The problem with the community care is it takes a while to get it started. And then you're at the mercy again of another medical facility saying, no, we're not going to take you, at this point. So there's bigger things than COVID. That's just Gary Lake's personal opinion, but I would do what we need to do to.
And they won't see you down there because you're non-emergent, what you're saying. It's true.
Pardon me?
The veterans can't be seen because it's non-emergent or it's just regular checkup.
No, the Minneapolis VA Medical Center has not stopped cancer treatment, and has not stopped with mental health. They know that those two things are big. The problem is, the challenge for us, because we're rural, is getting our people there. That's the issue. Some of the veterans have local care through the VA, but we have a very large amount that get their care through Minneapolis, and it's basically saving these veterans a lot of money compared to going to the outside here. So, yes, ma'am.
Ms. Dennis.
I just would like to say, I think we need to continue, have a plan for, like, how many do you take? You take a bus, how many are in there at one time? Disinfectant, but I think we owe our veterans that. That's my opinion.
Couldn't agree more. Mr. Slater.
Do your drivers and your passengers have access to the N95 masks?
No, this mask was given to me,
I think I got some.
but yeah, we don't have that. I have, we don't have any of that.
Maybe that would be something else.
Yeah, but like I said, we stop, we shut the doors. The way I've been doing business is on the phone, doing the claims on the phone, getting everything set up for the veterans, have them drive up like a drive-through, sign, and go on your way, and I process their claims. So their work has not stopped. But this issue is one that it's physical closeness that has to happen, to get them down there.
That's why I was wondering if you had access to the N95 masks, which are the best, would your drivers be more likely to be willing to drive?
That brings up a different challenge. I've got one driver that he said it doesn't matter. He's got, probably a mask like I do. The other one is as much as they drive, the income that they make driving versus the income they make for unemployment is two different things.
That's everyone's issue right now, actually.
Yes, sir. So anyway, so that's another challenge I have.
Yeah,
Okay.
oh, yeah.
We're going to address that with the public health official.
Like
Okay, and I'll get back to you, Gary.
Sure.
What about Memorial Day? What is
Memorial
planned?
Day. Talk to the American Legion member. I talked to the American Legion here. We worked to those concerned,
Speak up, Gary. We got people.
I'm sorry, the both posts were concerned about the legal aspects of getting in trouble for, I guess, providing the colors and setting the flag and having a small ceremony at the cemeteries, or like in town here, they usually go to Shoes Pond and then from there to Greenwood. Winter has its cemetery that they use, but they were concerned that they were going to get in trouble. I think yesterday before the Supreme Court's decision, the two regions decided they were going to do something, and they would just do spacing. So it is going. I asked them when they get the information, please send it to me. I will get it out to our community and the veterans. They're going to do the radio and the paper as well as far as what's going to happen when. So that's it for the ceremonies. That's all.
Are you in contact with Terrence out at the tribe as far as the LCO veterans?
Yes, I haven't heard anything on the public.
Because he's got a plan that he's sending to us. You guys should look at it.
Have not.
It looks safe, but it might change now with this, what happened last night.
Right. And I talked to, he called me last week and asked him, if we're going to set flags out, because our office takes care of the cemeteries on LCO, and setting flags out for the veterans, and also for Spider Lake. That's what our office takes care of every year. So next week, we're going to look for a dry spot to get out and put flags up at our veterans' grave sites throughout the Spider Lake and the LCO, multiple cemeteries in LCO. So that's kind of where we're at right now. Everything's fluid, but we're heading in the right direction.
Okay. Any comments? Gary?
Thank you for all you do.
Thank you.
I
My
appreciate-
apologies. I
I
tried.
appreciate you coming over.
I see my phone number and my name, but I couldn't talk.
Thank you for your perseverance.
We have those next.
Yes, ma'am. I will. Okay, I'll come back.
Oh, sure.
Yeah.
We're moving right along here. Appreciate that, Gary. Gary, email me later today if I haven't gotten back to you, okay? Because we're meeting with her at 11:30, and Tom and I will ask those questions.
All right, thank you, sir.
Okay? All right, before we leave the second court options, I'm making the list, but again, I'd like you guys to email me any concerns that you have that we want to run by Mr. King. And one that I had has already come up today, and that is if we were to choose one of these options where we're displacing like 4A and 4B, these public access, the county clerk, treasury, register of deeds, where are we going to put them so the public has easy access to them and so there's no interruption? Because he did talk about doing this construction in phases, which is important. And like Mr. Slender said, where do people go? They need these services. So that's what I have. Other words. Okay, Tom.
Yeah, just last comments on not only the second courtroom, but also just the Second Circuit Court and the whole judicial system and how that relates to the planning that we're doing, like in Criminal Justice Coordinating Council, which failed to meet a quorum this past week. But I really have concerns about that, the functionality of that committee in helping us work through some of these issues. That committee should be the ones that are helping to drive some of the decisions that you need to make, because the sheriff, the judge, the DA, clerk of courts, all the people that are instrumental in figuring out the functionality of the court system are on that committee, and rightfully so, because they're the ones that really know what's going on and what needs to happen. And it's disappointing that we haven't had a good meeting and made any progress recently, but The other concern there is the drug testing. The way that we've done drug testing, with the patches, has been beneficial, but now in the world that we live in, is that the way that that's going to continue? And if not, then what do we do? Because the judge relies on that to set bonds and some other things. So it's kind of a game changer in how we're going to go forward with that whole program and initiating new programs, and it affects the jail population and everything else. So, I know the board has been tossing these ideas around and not coming to any conclusions, but I think part of it is getting the right information from the right sources so that you guys can make decisions.
Tom, one of the meetings, committees I was at during public comment, they brought up a committee, Mr. Schlender, a courthouse safety committee or a court.
That's
Remember
already in
that?
place.
And they asked why that committee should meet and weigh in on this decision also.
Why they should or should not?
No, they should.
Well, that's state ordered. That's under the circuit court's responsibility, and it advises the judge on safety measures for court operations.
That's
So,
it.
I mean, it's up to the judge if that's going to come in. I think it's fair, but that's a question for the judge. And so, I mean, inviting that group to come in, we can
Could
definitely
you
do that.
approach the judge? And I think we'd like to know that committee's opinion.
Okay.
Before we go forward with any of these plans.
I think that's something, well, here's what I was going to ask is, Mr. Paulson has asked that the respective chairs for, was it Public Works, Public Safety, Finance, County Board Chair, and then if we can convene and not make that a separate task force, but make that kind of like just a discussion point to help identify these different groups, because I have the same concerns that Mr. Hopp has regarding the CJCC. Even though I'm the chair of that committee, it's like herding cats. I can't make people come and do stuff that they can't do. And I don't know if it's a meeting time restriction or if it's just, the mission of CJCC. But I think that too often it's easy to overlook committees that are not loud enough to extend and invite them. So if these committee chairs can come back and then confer with their groups, and then we can put together whatever we can do. I mean, I don't want to create a separate committee, because then we're going to have 600 committees all over the place. But we also have to have a better mechanism for communicating, not only amongst the elected officials and the delegated or the officials hired, but we got to start communicating this to the public, because there's a misconception that we're going to just spend money to build a second courtroom, and we're actually trying to renovate and build up the government offices that we have here, and I don't want to steal someone else's term, but we have to be comprehensive in this approach. We have to start figuring out what is the best way to provide services in this COVID-19. We don't have the luxury of addressing things in an orderly process. We have to comprehensively move on all of these at once, because everyone's needs are there, and when someone doesn't feel like their voice is legitimate, they're just going to get louder and go off on these rhetorics that So that's what I would ask.
I'd be open to convening that after Mr. Kane's presentation next week. Bring these people together and before we make our final decision. You good with that?
Can
Ms. Dennis?
the people who sit on this committee, can they email somebody and say why they're not showing up? I mean, let's not just resolve it. If there's a reason, you can work through that.
Yeah, we're working on it. I mean, are you talking about dissolving CJCC?
I'm
No.
not suggesting it be dissolved. I am suggesting
Step
that to be the savior
Yeah,
of
we get more
a lot of our
participation.
problems.
I
You said that
agree.
the other
The
day.
one thing though is, and I agree, I mean, CJCC, we have a little bit of a tainted history that makes it difficult for some people to participate, because the previous incarnation bogged down on this idea of bylaws. And so the second one is the meeting time is at 7:30 on Monday mornings. That could be kind of an issue. And the third one is this group is only advisory. So no matter what it does, whatever function it does or whatever action it takes, whatever recommendation they have it's not binding. It's merely an advisory. So if there's a lot of work being put in on something that really doesn't have any kind of impact, it's like, oh, okay, well, we'll take it under consideration. it's gonna be hard for people to come take time out of their schedule to come back and work on it. So, I'm just saying, and we can work on that. I do have emails out to other board members, or other committee members to come in and participate, even if, or send a delegate or something.
Great. Okay, Tom?
That's all.
I mean,
That's enough.
Great,
If
great
if you got
discussion.
other questions about anything that's going on or anything in the reports, we can entertain those thoughts as well.
Perfect. Mr. Kinsley, anything else to add?
I just have one question. Maybe the answer has been brought forward, but I forgot. How do we make all them dams with the wall keeping in with the backbone on top of the wall?
Yeah, we did resolve that. We came to a resolution with the contractor after investigation. I forget all the dam terms, but there wasn't cement at the bottom or something, so there was some give and take on whose fault it was and how it happened, and the contractor was very good to work with, and we reached a conclusion and settled it, and I don't remember the numbers, but it is settled, yes.
So you're gonna talk about this damn thing again, and you're gonna write a damn memo to help clarify this whole damn thing?
Okay, any other questions, concerns for Mr. Hawk? Thank you. Anything else, future agenda items? Okay. Other matters for discussion only. I just want to make the admin committee aware that at Fulton County Board next week, we are going to open this courthouse option discussion up for discussion only. Mr. Kane's going to give a presentation. I'm going to send him everything you guys email me and all the thoughts I have to consider. He's going to have construction costs, comparisons. We're going to have full board discussion. I can announce at that time too that I'm going to put together a task force that's going to look at these chairs you were mentioning, Jim, and anyone else we could think of that wants to be on it. Obviously, I think it needs to be the judge, correct? If there's anyone else you feel should be on it, Ms. Dennis?
I just have one thing. I lost my, okay, whatever plan we take, we need to find out about the noise. How that's going to, we talked about going up from the jail, but we couldn't do that because of the noise, was one of the reasons. So how is this construction going to affect different departments and where they're at?
Construction noise.
Exactly.
Interruption of
Let us, because if we don't, and it starts wherever, you're gonna hear it.
right. And then I got the length of construction, right?
Yeah.
Each project,
Yeah.
how long? Got it.
Let's keep in mind, it's a construction project. There is going to be disruption.
I agree with you, but I'm
So we're
saying,
not gonna get
you're not gonna
everybody's-
hear it. Yes. Yeah,
Okay, I appreciate everyone. We'll be right back.